Okay, so we're doing day 5, the essence of Shabbos. It's going to be really interesting now. So now we're going to really start to look into the blessings that Shabbos can bring, all the bracha of Shabbos, and then the holiness of Shabbos. So this is this third pasuk in the second chapter. And I had to look. This may be... No, wait, I'm sorry. It's not the first. I think the first time Hashem uses the word Baruch is on day 5, when he gives a special blessing to the fish. I think he gives a special Pru Revu blessing that the fish will be, multiply, be fruitful and multiply. So I think that's the very first. I think that's the very first bracha. And then I think then Adam and Chava, I think they're given a bracha. I had to go back and check. So this may be the third time. But it's interesting too, because that has a great significance. If this is the third time that we see bracha in the beginning of the Torah, there's this concept of if you take a cord and you wrap 3 threads in the cord, that cord's really strong and it can never be broken. So they say because Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov all accepted the Torah, it's like a 3-ply cord, and then the Jewish people will never be separated from Torah. And then on an individual basis, it says a family where a grandfather, a son, and a grandson will all learn Torah together, that family will always be connected to Torah. It can never be broken away now. So it's an interesting concept. So now Hashem's blessing and giving bracha to, so it says, Vayivarech Elokim es Yom HaShvi'i. Now what's fascinating too is, usually, we were talking a little bit before we started today about the right and the left. So generally, chesed and kindness is on the right, and we generally associate blessing coming from that side, from the side of love and kindness. What's fascinating is all of the Maisa Bereshis has been in this aspect of the name of Elokim, where Hashem's using the name Elokim, which is from the left side, which is generally associated with judgment and din, and sometimes punishment. So it's Hashem's showing something very important. He's showing even from his left, even from his side of punishment. So it's like an angry parent. A parent has to punish the children sometimes, but even from that side is coming blessing. And even all of the Maisa Bereshis is coming from 32 times that the name Elokim is used. And it's showing that and we see twice in this week's Parsha, in Parsha by Eschanan, and we're in Shabbos Nachamu, we're now in the consolation. And the Torah teaches something very important. It says, Hashem hu ha-Elokim, ein od milvadu. That even if Hashem's acting to us, with love and kindness, or Chas v'Shalom sometimes when he's acting to us, with punishment and din, it's only one infinite being, right? It's always Eravinu Shabashamayim. It's always coming from love, right? It's like a parent, either showering love on the children or punishing the children so they'll be better, but it's always done with love, and there's only one infinite being. There's none other. So here we see even this aspect of Elokim is creating everything and then blessing the 7th day. So the 7th day, we're going to see, has been given special blessings by Hashem. And then we'll start to learn about what each one of these blessings are. Right? So then it says, Vayikadesh oso. And then he made it holy. He made Shabbos holy. So there's a fascinating thing where there's a difference between Shabbos and Yom Tov. That the way Hashem has created it, that Shabbos has the holiness is already in Shabbos, the Shabbos HaKodesh. And then what we try to do is, we try to bring, the Shabbos out into ourselves, into our families, into our surroundings. Whereas Yom Tov, which is interesting, Yom Tov, he's made us more of a partner in the Yom Tovim, and we have to Mekadesh. We have to make the Yom Tov holy, right? The Yom Tov gets its holiness from Shabbos. So there's a lot of famous commentary in Mefarshim on this, that there's when we were saved from Egypt, when we were in Mitzrayim, there was the Shabbos Hagadol. That was the great Shabbos, right? And that was the Shabbos where I think we took the animal, we took a little sheep or lamb into our homes on the 10th of Nisan, and that was Shabbos. And then a lot of Mefarshim go on to explain that it was the Shabbos from Shabbos HaGadol, and then all the Kedusha, all the holiness went from that Shabbos, and then that caused the Yetzias Mitzrayim. And then the holiness went from the Shabbos into the Yom Tov, into Chag HaPesach, Chag HaPesach, into the Passover, and then the holiness makes the Yom Tov holy from the Shabbos. So Yom Tov, it's interesting. The Yom Tov itself doesn't have the inherent kedusha, the holiness. It has to get it from Shabbos, and then we have a role. We make. It's very interesting. Hashem let us be partners that we make Yom Tov holy. We mekadosh it. Same for Rosh Chodesh. He gave us the ability, he gave us the mitzvah that we mekadosh the month. That the Sanhedrin, they would proclaim the Rosh Chodesh, and it could be, it could be on the 29th, it could be on the 30th, but whatever day the Sanhedrin picked, then they mekadoshed it. Like that day became holy. It wasn't holy until, it's very interesting, until the Sanhedrin, proclaimed it Rosh Chodesh and made it holy. But Shabbos itself, Hashem's already filled it with kedusha. It's a day that's already holy, and then we just try to experience it and bring as much kedusha as we can into the world from it. Okay, so Kivo Shabbos. Now once again, we'll see the word Shabbos. So because on it, like Shabbos, Hashem rested, Hashem stopped any creative activity, any malachim. So Shabbos mikol malakto. He rested from all of his malacha, all of his creation, all of his creative actions. Asher bara, that Hashem, that he created, that Elohim created liasos, to make it. Nice. It's a very, very deep concept. Any questions yet? Or we'll start going on to some of the midrashim. And we're going to start looking into now what is the holiness of Shabbos. How can we get more of the holiness of Shabbos? All right, so let's see. And so we're going to go here. We're going to read this Rashi. It's very interesting. So Rashi says, "Vayivarech vayikadesh." Hashem, he blessed it, and he made it holy. And it says, "Baruch hu b'man." So what was one of the first blessings? He blessed it with the man, And it says, Shekol Yemos HaShavua, for all the days of the week, Haya Yored Lahem, there would descend to them Omer Lagugelis, for every person, literally means an Omer for every head. For every person in each family, there was one Omer Aman that was that fell before their tent, and there's a lot of very interesting midrashim on this. If the person, let's say the person was a great tzaddik, the man would fall right before their tent. They would just literally open the tent and there's the man. But if the person was, let's say, not as good, they had to walk farther and farther away from their tent and had to put more effort into getting the man. It's the same thing kind of like with Parnasa. That's how it all works. Like a great tzaddik can just sit and learn in Shiva and just teach Torah all day and all night, and Hashem will just give him, Hashem will just give him all the parnasa. It will just come to him. He won't even really have to exert himself so much. But for the average person, we have to go out, we have to do things, we have to make parnasa. So it's interesting. So it's all like parnasa. This is how it all works. This is how parnasa works. Yeah.
A couple of things.
Okay.
One is, I like the idea of the Sanhedrin making Rosh Chodesh. That's a great idea. Because today, Sanhedrin said it's Kedusha.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
Second thing is, you said Shabbat HaGadol in Egypt was when we took the animals and we shechted their guts.
Yeah.
That's the Shabbat HaGadol, celebrating of that. Yeah. How do you go from Shabbat HaGadol to Yom Tov?
Oh, how's that happen?
I like the idea, but
okay.
You go from Shabbat HaGadol, which is Shabbat,
okay,
which takes Shabbat into a day and makes that Yom Tov. How do you make that transition?
Okay, so there's this pattern every week that I think it's from what we call Wednesday. It's like Yom Revi'i, right, of Shabbos, every week. So from the fourth day of Shabbos, or we call it Wednesday. So let's say Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Friday's Erev Shabbos. those 3 days, that's the main days we're doing all this preparation, and we're like everything we're doing is getting ready for the Kedusha Shabbos. Then the first 3 days of the week, so it would technically be Yom Rishon, Yom Sheni, Yom Shlishi, but we generally call it Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Now the Kedusha of that Shabbos comes out into the week. So, and then it says, like, we'll see the blessings, like Shabbos can sustain a person, like, throughout the week. So before we lived in this age of, like, massive, like, supermarkets, global trade of food, people could, like, they would have this feast on Shabbos. They may not have a lot of food, as much during the week, but they would have so much food on Shabbos, and that bracha, that blessing from Shabbos would come out into the week, and they would continue eating the food they prepared for Shabbos, and it would feed them through the first 3 days of the week. And then there's even this concept that a person can not even make Havdalah until Tuesday. So a person can just be in Shabbos. I've heard of like big Siddiqim, Gedolim in Eretz Yisrael that do this. They're in Shabbos longer. So, we can go back into the week, we can start doing Malach again, but it's considered that the Kedusha comes out of Shabbos. So what has been explained, or how I've seen it, is that so that Kedusha in Shabbos can go into the next Yom Tov. So how it worked in Egypt was, here, let's see if we can figure it out. So if Shabbos, let's say the Shabbos was the 10th of Nisan, right? So that's Shabbos, that's when everyone took the lamb and the goat into their tents. And we're going to see something very important, because we can contrast that Shabbos HaGadol, with two very other important Shabboses. The very first Shabbos in the world, so the Shabbos that Adam and Chava were about to experience. And then here, Rashi is going to start to talk about another very important Shabbos, is when the man first fell. And then the first time as a nation after we came out of Egypt, we were going to experience Shabbos as a nation. After we got maybe some of the halakha, or we have to go, but that's also a crucial Shabbos. So we're going to see in the one Shabbos in Egypt, the Shabbos HaGadol, we passed the test of Amunah. Right? We passed the test, and unfortunately, like the other two times, like maybe the Amunah, we didn't pass the test. But because we passed the test in Egypt, I mean, we were fearless of being attacked by this powerful empire for taking their God, right? Their God into our tents, our homes, and checked it. And we did it because Hashem commanded us to do it. So we passed that test. And then that Kedusha from Shabbos came out. The Kedusha from the holiness from the great Shabbos HaGadol, the great Shabbos, came into the Chag of Pesach. It came into the festival of Passover, and that broke all the spiritual holds that Egypt had on us, and it let us out. It broke us free.
There's probably a relationship between Shabbat HaGadol and the first day of Pesach.
Right. That's
probably some relationship.
No, that's what I'm saying. Because it's a lot of Meforshim I've read. I read specifically, like I think like the Or Gedalia right now is coming to mind. But he said it was because of that Shabbos HaGadol that created the ability that what happened on Chag HaPesach. Yeah, what happened. To fully, because to give you an example, like we have that potential every Pesach, but we see, unfortunately, like year in and year out now, for a long time in this Golus Edom, we haven't fully tapped in to that spiritual energy that is on the first night of the Seder to break out, right? We haven't, but I'll tell you when we did. I'll tell you when it did work. It worked in the days of Mordechai and Esther, because the decree, Haman's decree, that he got Achashverosh the seal, the royal seal, to kill all the Jews, was decreed on the 13th of Nisan, and that's when Queen Esther declared a 3-day fast. So it's really miraculous. So if you think about it, so the Jewish people, they fasted on the 13th of Nisan. They fasted on the 14th of Nisan, right? So they fasted on Erev Pesach, getting ready for Pesach, and they fasted that first night. So I don't think we had a Seder that year, which is so interesting, right? And they fasted on that first night of Pesach, okay? But then we see that Queen Esther invited Achashverosh and Mordechai to 2 wine feasts. right? So she had 2 wine feasts, this Mishta Yayin. So the first night she was probably still fasting, right? So she probably didn't partake in it the first night. But it's probably very interesting that wine feast she prepared for Achashverosh and Haman. She's like, oh, we're going to have a wine feast. We're going to have 4 cups of wine tonight during our wine feast. I'm going to bring out very interesting flat breads for you guys to try during our wine feast. You guys are going to have bitter herbs. You're going to dip it in, So she probably, during the first wine feast, she was still fasting, right? But she had them and she invited them to a Seder. So the Jewish people that year, it seems like the Jewish people weren't participating in the Seder that year. And the only people, ironically, that were participating in the Seder was Esther, Achashverosh, and Haman. And then the second night, she had another Mishta, right? Another wine feast, right? Second night of Pesach, right? And then once again, I'm sure we do another 4 cups of wine, but now she's eating. So something's a little different now. Now she's partaking in the feast the second night. And then that's when, Haman was hung. So there we were saved. We were saved in that Seder, right?
Unfair question.
Okay.
Why don't we go from Shabbat and make Sunday a Yom Tov?
No, but I mean, Yom Tovim can only come, when they're supposed to come. We can't just make any day. We can't just make any day. Like a Yom Tov has the potential to become holy. So if it's the 15th of Nisan, it has the potential to become holy, right? If it's Rosh Hashanah, right, it has the potential of a Yom Tov to become. There's certain days, like we can't just pick a day willy nilly and just make it holy. But these Yom Tovim have the potential, and then Hashem is like, we're partners in it. And then Hashem,
I like that deal.
No, Hashem's giving us because I think even the bracha we use, it's like I forgot, but we use a different certain. I have to look it up again. We use a different little text, a nusach that how we say the bracha on Yom Tov, and it implies that we're helping Makadosh it.
I think the first day. Basically, what you're saying, I love what you're saying.
Yeah.
The idea of the first day of Pesach.
Yeah.
The relationship of that day versus Shabbat HaGadol.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
The Shabbat HaGadol takes the Kedusha into the first day of Pesach.
Yeah.
The relationship with that, God is something.
Yeah, so we're going to compare. We're going to compare Shabbos HaGadol, and we're going to also compare that with then the potential of the very first Shabbos with Adam Chava. Like what could have happened, what went wrong, and then our first Shabbos as a nation with the Man. Let me just finish this Rashi, and then we're going to see that there's great potential this very first Shabbos. So let me see. So it says. So let me just go back through it real quick. So he says that the Givarech v'Yikadesh. So Rashi says like he's commenting on and Elohim blessed and he made holy. So it says Baruchu B'man. He blessed it. So one of the brachas that was given on Shabbos was the man. Now how did this bless Shabbos? So it's interesting. So he says, so Shekol Yemotza Shavua, so for all the days of the week, Haya Yored Lechem, Omer Legugolis. So every day of the week, Hashem gave like an Omer of man for each person in the house. Uvashishi Lechem Mishnah. But on the 6th day, every person got a double portion, got 2 Omers. So then there was one portion that was given to prepare for Shabbos. So v'ki shobaman, and then he made it holy with the manna, shelo yered klal b'Shabbos, that it wouldn't come down at all on Shabbos. V'hamikra kasu, and it's written in the pasuk al shem hasid, with reference to the future. So I'll read this quick footnote here. So that's from Breshis Rabbah 11:2. So we do a lot to remember this, which is very interesting. So how the man came down was Hashem put a layer of dew like over the ground of the camp, of the whole camp of Israel. And so that protected the man from the ground. So that, you wouldn't have any dirt, any grass, nothing would get into the man. No sand, no nothing. So the man fell in this first layer of dew, and then Hashem put another layer of dew on top of the man to protect it. So we have a minhag every Shabbos. So what we do is we lay out the tablecloth, and this is to remind us of the bottom layer of dew that covers the whole ground. And then we cover the challah, right, with another covering, and that reminds us of the second layer of dew. And then, at every Suda, we have 2 challahs, and that's the Lechem Mishnah, and that's to remind us that Hashem gave 2 Elmers on Erev Shabbos to every Jewish person. So we're constantly reminding ourselves of this. We're constantly... it's pretty interesting, right? Okay, so we're not forgetting. So it's interesting. Rashi's making an interesting statement that that this is referring to something in the future, which is very interesting. So then the final part here, Rashi's going to comment on Asher Bara, that Hashem, he created Elohim, Asher Bara Elohim Leasos, that which Elohim created to do. Right, so what does that mean? So Rashi's saying, Hamalacha Shahaisa Reuya Leasos b'Shabbos. So the work which was fit to do on Shabbos, Kafal v'Yasa'a b'Shishi. He doubled, like we saw, like each day 1 through 5, Hashem created 3 main things. But then on the 6th day, Hashem doubled the work he was doing to finish the Ma'aseh Bereshis, and he did 6 things. Hashem created 6 things on the 6th day. Kamo Shemefarash Bereshis Rava. This is explained Bereshis Rava. We went through this yesterday, so I'll just do this real quick again. So on the first day, Hashem created heaven, earth, and light. So 3 things. On day 2, he created the Rakia, the firmament, Gehenna, and angels. On day 3, he created trees, plant, life, and the Garden of Eden. Day 4, the sun, the moon, the constellations, meaning all the stars. And day 5, the fish, the birds, Leviathan, the Leviathan. So each day, 1 through 5, has 3 things created. But then day 6, he created Adam, man. He created Chava. He created women. He created the Shiratzim, the creepy creatures, all the insects. He created the behemoths, the domesticated animals, the Chayos, the wild animals, and the harmful spirits, the Mazikim, the demons, the Shindala. So it's interesting. So Rashi's telling us that what the pasuk's saying is that Hashem doubled everything he had to do, and then as we were talking about yesterday, Hashem knew the exact moment that Shabbos would start, and Hashem got everything created, everything done, and everything was really done on the 6th day, even though we don't know how to so precisely calculate the times. So the Torah says, "Vayichulu Shemayim," Veshavi, right? So because people don't know how to so precisely calculate the time that Shabbos exactly comes in, it appeared to us that Hashem finished on the 6th day, but on the 7th day. But really, Hashem finished all the work, all the malachah, all the creation on the 6th day, and then all the creative labor stopped. The second, the fraction of a time where Shabbos came in, and then really nothing was created on the 7th day. Hashem completely rested, Shabbos. He rested from any more creation. And what's interesting is, so when King Ptolemy, the Greek king in Egypt, when he ordered that the Torah be translated, so once again, that was like, they all had Ruach HaKodesh, they all translated exactly the same thing. And one of the things they all changed is they changed their translation to say, Hashem, finished creating on the 6th day and then rested on the 7th. So even though it literally says in the Torah, Vayichulu Shemayim, he finished on the 7th day, but that's only because people don't know how to so precisely calculate it. But it's interesting, when they translated it, they wanted to make sure that it was clear that Hashem created nothing right on Shabbos, and all the creation was done on the 6th day. Right, so what it means is, what the deep thing is, it's very interesting, is if there's no creation being done on the 7th day, then what is happening on the 7th day? And that's what we're seeing here. So then there's no creation being happening on the 7th day, but there's bracha, there's blessings that people can get. There's blessings people can get from resting on Shabbos. And then there's Kedusha, and then there's holiness in Shabbos that people can experience. Okay, so let's see where we're at. let's go on. Let's go to this Mishnah here. I mean, this Midrash here. So this is by Bereshis Rabbah 10:10. And it says the king prepared his daughter's chuppah. Do you guys want me to put it on the board, or should I just say it? Or it's okay. Okay. All right. So the king prepared his daughter's chuppah, and the wedding canopy was set up, and it was decorated with flowers, and the delicacies for the guests, all the gourmet food for the guests was prepared, and the musicians played. But who was missing? So the Kala, the bride herself. So only she could invest the scenery with a purpose. So similarly, the world was established in its beauty and perfection, but an essential ingredient was lacking: Shabbos, rest. Only when Shabbos came to the world did rest come to the world. It was Menucha, rest which Hashem created on the seventh day. So it's a really deep, it's a really interesting idea. So there's also one idea that the first 6 days of creation, they each have a pair. So the first day of creation has the second day of creation. The third day of creation has the fourth day of creation. I think there's also a pattern there that there's also a connection of Shemayim and Aretz. Like there's one day of like something being created for the heavens and things created for the... Okay. So the first...
How do you get 1 and 2 together?
Let me go through this again. Okay, so the 6 days of creation. So those 6 days of creation are all in pairs. So the first day goes with the second day.
I missed that.
Let's go with it for a second. Okay. Like the third day, right? The third day goes with the fourth day, right? And then the fifth day goes with the sixth day. But then Shabbos is left all alone because there's an odd number of days. So Shabbos, asks like who is my Zivug, who's my Shidduch, who's my Bashir. And then Hashem says like you have the Jewish people. So it's like the Chassan and the Kala. So the Shabbos is the Kala, right? And so we have the special relationship, with Shabbos. Interesting. I'll tell you something very interesting. I just kind of thought about this. But we have this Shidduch crisis, right? In Klal Yisrael. But there's a lot of Kalas, that don't have Chassan. And it's horrible. It's a horrible thing, right? But if we also think about it, we have a Shabbos crisis. We have all these Jews that aren't celebrating Shabbos. Right. And that could be the missing ingredient.
Could mean?
It could be it's probably the missing ingredient.
Oh.
Like there could be a Kala, but her Chassan is not, it's not following Shabbos yet, So she's kind of left stranded, just like Shabbos is kind of being left stranded by the Jewish people. We're not really giving Shabbos the attention and the respect and the festivities that it deserves, because we're the pair. Like if the Jewish people, we're connected with Shabbos. We got a big Shabbos crisis too. Like that may be causing the other crisis. But it's saying something special here. It's a very interesting idea that Hashem created something by stopping, right? By stopping creating. Right? Hashem created Menucha by stopping creation. And then by stopping creation, it created Menucha. And it's one of like, I don't know, like I'm like fairly impatient. It's like patience is something like I've been really working on trying to learn and get better at. But Shabbos is like the greatest teacher because like really like sometimes we get caught up in thinking like what we're doing is like so important and this and that. But Shabbos is really it's really so important because it's a day to step back and really see that really like Hashem's really like we're so worried about this and that. But if we like increase our emunah, if we increase our bitachon and step back, we see that Hashem's really running everything. Hashem's the melech haolam. It's like, oh, this is gonna happen and that's gonna happen, but it's good to have that day to step back and it's like and see because Hashem is more aware of everything that happens in the world than we'll ever be. Like he sees everyone's actions, knows every thought of everyone in the world. And he knew all, Hashem's outside of time and space. Hashem knows, sees all of world history. He knows everything that's going to happen in the world. We see this little fraction in our lives, a little fraction of what's happening. But he sees it all, perceives it all. He knows past, present, future. He's outside of it all. And he says that everything's good. And then even more, it was like when he created Adam and Chava, he says it's Tov Ma'od, it's very good. Right? The sixth day, it's very good. And then Shabbos, it's even higher. It's a day filled with bracha and kedusha. And we're going to see great things people can get because of Shabbos. Right, so let's go. So here's another concept. It's very interesting. So we talked about it a little bit before. So Adam Rishon, Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve, they were created on the sixth day. Now, what's so amazing is they were beginning their lives, and they had there was these 12 hours of Erev Shabbos. And I have to look it up again. It's very interesting in the Gemara. It tells like each hour exactly what happened. It was very packed day. Like if you ever thought you were busy Erev Shabbos, it's like Adam is created. like I forgot the exact order, but like Adam Rishon, he names all the animals. Then he has a chasana. He gets a new kala created from him, and then he has a chasana, and then and they I believe they had kids. It was miraculous. It was right away. Like Cain and Abel, they were like instantly born like 20-year-olds. So it's like within hours of being created, he's married, has children. It's like it's just everything's moving very, very fast. It seemed like they wouldn't have time for the whole Eitz Das Tov V'Rafim, the whole tree of knowledge of good and evil. It seems like they wouldn't even have time for that. So crazy. But it's just amazing, like the 12 hours of that. And then we're gonna,
I love the idea
okay.
of the Shabbat crisis and the Shidduch crisis. That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
But to get the ball rolling, you have to start with Sunday and Monday. How do you get the ball rolling?
Oh, in terms of
teaming, you got Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
No.
You mean why are the days?
I'm sorry.
Why are the days why is day 1 and 2 connected?
How do you connect Sunday and Monday?
Okay, so there's a midrash. I'd have to look it up again. There's a midrash that explains it, but I think if you look at everything, let me try to do it a little bit real quick. But there's like a perfect balance between like things were created for Shemayim and things were created for the Aretz. And then if you link up both days, you'll get an equal amount of things that were created for the heaven and created for the earth. And they have this balance. Every 2 days has this balance. So then, there's one day where you don't have this balance anymore.
Which is Friday and Saturday.
Which is the Shabbos. Because Shabbos is the 7th day.
Right.
So it doesn't have a pair. And that's why Hashem made the Jewish people its pair. So we act as Shabbos' pair. That's why do we greet the Shabbos queen, Because we're supposed to be, in a sense, the Jewish people, I guess, are supposed to be the chasen. We're greeting our kala, we're greeting Shabbos. So we're standing up, the Shabbos queen comes in, and which I think means the Shekinah. I think it means the Shekinah. All right, so let me just want you to start thinking about this idea. Okay, so in these 12 hours, now these 12 hours. And then added on the 24 hours of Shabbos. Hashem never made it night. Right? He never made it night. So for those 36 hours, it was light outside, and the light was what we talked about, the Or Ein Sof, the infinite light that emanates from Hashem. And then after that Shabbos, it became what's called the Or Haganus, the hidden light, because then Hashem hid it away. But what's fascinating, and then those 36 hours, right? Those 36 hours, we can tap into that light with the 36 candles over Hanukkah. So in the course of the 8 days of Hanukkah, we end up lighting 36 neiros, right? 36 candles. It's also very fascinating because it ties into what we saw in Parsha Devarim. And Moshe Rabbeinu, so the Sefer Devarim, the book of Deuteronomy, is the last 37 days of Moshe Rabbeinu's life, and Moshe taught Torah for 36 days. And that also connects into these 36 hours, right, of Gan Eden. It's very interesting, very fascinating. So, Adam and Chava, they never saw darkness, right? And that's why Adam was so scared, right? When Shabbos ended, like as Shabbos was ending, it was starting to become dark. And remember, they were given this death sentence too. Like if you eat from the tree, Hashem says, Yomos Yumas, you will die, right? You will die. So they were expecting that this was it. So they probably thought they were dead at the end of Shabbos, because they'd never seen darkness. And all of a sudden now, after these 36 hours, it became dark. The stars came out. And then that's when Hashem gave them, it may be when Hashem gave them Aish. Right? I think it was. I mean, the Midrash says they were given Aish for Havdalah. And the lesson is that Havdalah is now, what we're talking about, is the Kiddush of Shabbos doesn't end. It starts coming out as the week. And to give you another great example, why do we have this beautiful minhag of Malava Malka? We don't let just Shabbos end. We have another Suda. Now, Motzi Shabbos, outside of Shabbos, we have another Suda. And what's that Suda? So the Kedusha of Shabbos can come now into this other Suda. The Kedusha of Shabbos can come into a fourth Suda of Shabbos outside of Shabbos.
But then how did you take Sunday to Monday?
Oh, you're just I mean the Midrash, you can look at it in a simple way. It's just like first 2 days, next 2 days, next 2 days. It's just 6 days.
Even then Shabbat is odd and the clouds will be.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what, you can just look at it a very simple way. It's just each 2 days has a pair. I have to look more into a deeper meaning. If you're looking for the deeper meaning, exactly why day 1 with day 2, why day 3 with day, I would have to look that up a little bit.
I love the 6 and the 6 and 7.
Okay.
Oh, that's good.
Okay, I have to look that up. Okay, so
That's amazing.
so we're gonna take a break soon, but so let's finish with this right now, and then we'll take a little break. But they're right. So we talked about it a little before. They're created. Shabbos doesn't exist yet. While they're in Erev Shabbos, like there was no Shabbos yet in the world. There was no 7th day yet in the world. Hashem had only created these 6 days. So once again, we talked about, so Shabbos was untouched by the Chet of Adam and Chava, right? It was untouched. It was unblemished. So it's just this day that only has bracha and only has kedusha, but didn't have any of the blemish from the weekdays. Like even though like there was this big hate during the weekdays. So the Midrash, what's interesting is, so let's say, what if they got it right? What was the potential? What if they didn't listen to the Nachash? What if they didn't listen to the serpent? What if they didn't listen to the Yetz? And also, you got to remember that the Yetzer Hara was external force. And when they were created, it was external. Now, unfortunately, we have this battle in our thoughts, where we have some thoughts that are being given to us by the Yetzer Hara, and some thoughts that are being given to us by the Yetzer Tov, by the good impulse. And then what we have to do is we have all these thoughts racing through our mind, and we have to always choose. So where we're at, where our Bechira level is at, where our free will level is how we're choosing on a daily basis. Are we using the Torah that we know to resist more of the thoughts from the Yetzer Hara? And are we choosing more of the thoughts from the Yetzer Tov? And every day that's the battle. How are we using the Torah that we learn? And the more we do Torah, the more we learn Torah, the more we're doing the mitzvahs, the more we're getting more accustomed to constantly choosing the Yetzer Tov. We're strengthening that. Now here's another interesting thing I learned. It's very fascinating. We get the Yetzer Hara. It says the Yetzer Hara, like sin, is crouching. Once a person comes in the world. So the second someone's born, the Yetzer Hara goes into that person, right? So the Yetzer Hara is older, right? And the person doesn't get the Yetzer Tov until, for like a girl, until like her bat mitzvah at 12, and for a boy until his bar mitzvah at 13. And then the person gets the Yetzer Tov. So the Yetzer Hara has been with us longer. And that's why in Mishlei, Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon calls it, the old foolish king, that doesn't know how to take care of himself. Like that's the Yetzer Hara. And then the young, wise, poor man. So the Yetzer Hara is like the old, rich, foolish king. And the Yetzer Tov, Shlomo describes as, the young, wise, poor man, right? So because the Yetzer Tov sometimes seems to us, like the poor man, with the humble poor man, with the Torah and the wisdom, whereas the Yetzer Hara is all the temptations of wealth and fame and luxury and all that. So what's interesting is, so I've heard this very fascinating. So when we hear a thought, we can always know if it's the Yetzer Hara or the Yetzer Tov, because when we hear thoughts from the Yetzer Hara, it will say in the language of ani, like I want to do this, I want this, I want that. This is what I need. It's always I, right? And we can always tell when it's a thought from the Yetzer Tov, because it will sound, but it'll be more distance. It won't be I. It will say, you should really do this. You should really do that. You should really. And it's interesting because the Yetzer Tov we got later, it's more distant. It feels more external to us. It's talking to us as a stranger. You should. Whereas the Yetzer Hara, which unfortunately has been with us longer, it's like I. It's speaking that it's us. And that's the battle, right? That's the battle. And we want to keep strengthening the Yetzer Tov. And then, B'ezrat Hashem, there's great Tzaddik Gemorim, complete tzaddiks that have actually got the Yetzer Hara out of them, right? They no longer have a Yetzer. It's just like it was in the days of Adam and Chava. The Yetzer Hara is outside of them again, not inside of them. That was the problem with the Tree of Knowledge. It brought the Yetzer Hara inside to a person. Where now the battle's inside. The battle used to be outside, now the battle's inside a person. And then I'll leave you one last thing for the break. So then, Adam and Chava, when they were originally created, they were in this Ketsonis ore. Let's take a look at this real quick. They were I'm all backwards today. I meant to draw a cup. So they were in this Ketsonis. There may be a vav, I forgot. Ketsonis or a Ketsonis or, right? So very fascinating. So this is the gematria. This is 1. The gematria. This is 70. It's very important. All right. So it means they were in clothing. So Adam and Chava, when they were created, they were in clothing of light, which means like their neshamas were on the outside, and their goof, their body, was on the inside. So they were like shiny. They looked like the malachim. Like the malachim looked at them like they were higher than the malachim. I mean, they were so elevated, but they were these shiny spiritual beings, and their physical essence was on the inside, because they were wearing clothing, Ketsonis, or with an aleph. Now, and then, unfortunately, after they did the chet, then what happened is now their neshamas went into the inside, their bodies came out to the outside, and now they had clothing of skin, like all of us. So we're not shiny, we're not shiny beings. We have, all we see is the physical skin, and then our neshamas are hidden inside. So I think one thing that's very fascinating is the difference between the ayin and the aleph. When we're connected to the one, when we are just so connected to Hashem, then we can have the Ketsonis or, how mankind was originally created. But when we attach more to the 70 nations, when we're being influenced by all the nations around us, then we have to wear the Ketsonis or. And that's when they were embarrassed, because they never saw their skin. They never had skin before. So they were shiny like fingernails, they were probably. So who returned to this state? Right? Who returned to this state? So we know of at least one man that returned to this state was Moshe Rabbeinu. So Moshe Rabbeinu was so attached to Hashem, closer than any man or woman had ever been attached to Hashem. He was the greatest of all the Nevi'im. And when he came down from Har Sinai, now he had the Karen, the Karen, or he had light rays shining from him. And then he covered himself with a veil, but he returned to this state. He returned now that he had the Kesonis or again, which is funny too, because it leads to the whole misconception of like Karan, light rays, with Karen, and the mistranslation, and then the nations are, the crazy claims of the horns, because they don't know the word for light rays, because it's the same letters, but they don't have the nakudas, they don't have the vowels, so they make the mistake. But it's very interesting, and this is the goal. So this is like where Olam Haba, after Techias Amesim, and the goal is that all of mankind should return to that original state, and the Yetzer Hara will be gone. Will actually be shafted and gone, like we say in the Kad Gadya. And then all mankind can return to the Kesonis or, just a world of people just connected to Hashem, connected to, Like any questions before the break, or okay, I will take a quick break. Okay. So we talked about this a little before. The Tikkuni HaZohar. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he looks at the 70 facets of the first word in the Torah, Bereshis. So we saw before, like Bara Shis, like Hashem created 6. So in Bereshis is the idea that Hashem created everything on the 6 days of creation. Another way to divide the word up, when we talk about Rosh Bias, like that. So and there's 70 facets of it, of the meaning of Bereshis. So one meaning is that there was base Reshis, there was 2 beginnings. So like when Hashem says Bereshis, when Hashem's creating the world, Hashem created 2 worlds. So it says in the Sifrei Kabbalah that Hashem created Olam Haba. He created the world to come with the Yud, and He created Olam Hazeh, this world, with the He. So the first 2 letters of Hashem's name, He creates 2 worlds. Right, so then what does it mean in these 2 worlds? And I'm bringing this up because we're going to talk a little more about what we started, about this concept of how important that Shabbos was, that very first Shabbos, and then what's the power, the blessing, and the Kedusha of Shabbos, the blessing, the holiness of Shabbos, and how does it have this power? And what's the power it has? Okay, so it's 2 beginnings. So Hashem created 2 things. He created what we're living in now. So this physical world, everything that we're living in, the way the world is now, it's Olam Hazeh. But what Hashem did is, Hashem created, even though Hashem created it, right, and said everything's tov, everything's good, right, so we had this one aspect, and there's these, we talk about Sephiros, I'm not going to go too deeply into it, but the original Sephiros, they couldn't hold the infinite light, and they shattered, and when they shattered, that created what's called the klipos, the things that are blocking the light, and it's related to the kings, the original kings of Edom. Right? I just want to like briefly skip by all that right now, but just give you a little bit of that idea. And so what it means is, then Ra, what we call evil, was formed from these shards. Like that's the potential for evil. So there's something that needs to be fixed.
Beginnings.
What's that? So Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba.
Oh, that's what you call.
Yeah, there's
beginnings.
2 worlds. There's 2 beginnings of 2 worlds. Okay. So what it literally means is, Olam Hazeh literally means this world. It means the world we're living in right now. The physical world, earth, what we're living in, the world we're living in is this world. Olam Haba is the potential of what this world can become. Olam Haba is the world to come, meaning in the future, this world is going to be transformed into that world. Now, what does it mean? It means that what Hashem did is, Hashem created the world, Ma'aseh Bereshis. Hashem's looking at the days. This is good. This is good. This is good. When He creates man, when He creates Adam and Chava, He says it's Tov Ma'od. It's very good. So what's the difference? Why is man so important? And what's the role of the Jewish people that we're going to be able to teach the Torah to the world to lead them to Olam Haba? Why is man very good? Why man's very good is the way Hashem created us is He created us to be partners in the creation, and that Hashem left room where the creation can be taken up to a higher level. Okay, so what we see is, so there's the original 6 days of creation, and then that's parallel because it says, I believe, I forgot exactly where in Tehillim, I think it says that like a day is like 1,000 years in Hashem's eyes. Like there's a people day, which is 24 hours, and then there's a God day, Hashem day, which is 1,000 years. So what it means is that each day of creation parallels in 1,000 years of world history. So what happened, and then the Pirkei Avos breaks it down into 3 parts. So it says the first 2,000 years before the Torah was given was Tohu. There was chaos, the world wasn't in order, we saw all, the great Averas, like the third generation starts with Avodah Zarah, and the generation of Enosh. We see the generation of the flood, the whole world's destroyed in a flood. We see the Tower of Babel, the Migdal Bavel, and we see the Dora Flaga, the whole world separated into the nations, 70 nations and 70 languages. We see all this Avera. We even talked about the angels. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry, I got the angels' names wrong. The Nephilim, the Bnei Elohim, I believe their names are Azza and Azael, right? And what's interesting about that name is Azza is the word in Lashon HaKodesh for Gaza. I'm sure there's some deep connections there. We have to think more about it, but it means strong, right? And maybe not even in good ways, but right. So those were the Nephilim. So all this, those first 2,000 years of history, there was a lot of chaos, and there was no Seder, there was no Torah yet to guide mankind. So then Abraham was born in 1948, and then I believe when he is 52, then he starts teaching Torah to the world. And now it's the next 2,000 years of world history, and that's the age of Torah. So first the 2,000 years of Tohu, and now the 2,000 years of Torah. And now we see Moshe Rabbeinu, he receives the Torah, and first we see the Avos and the Imachos, the fathers and the mothers, we see Avraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, and they're teaching the world Torah. And it's the golden age of Torah, right? We have the Beis HaMikdash, we have David HaMelech, King David, we have Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon. It's the golden age of Torah, those 2,000 years. Now then, starting the year 4,000 to 6,000, which I believe, and it's so crazy how far back it was. I believe it was in the days of Rav and Shmuel. And that's when the 4,000 years start, the last 2,000 years. And now it's the age of Mashiach. So anywhere from the year 4,000, as crazy as this, Mashiach could have come. And we're now at the year 5,785. 1,785 years later, and Mashiach could have come in the year 4,000. So now we're in the last 2,000 years, the age of Mashiach, and Mashiach can come at any time, and Hashem can send Mashiach and complete the process. That could also, by the way, that could be maybe your answer of day 1, 2, day 3, 4. It could be in this pattern: the age of Tohu, the age of Torah, and the age of Mashiach. So we're right. We're getting close, but this is all world history. All world history is the first 6,000 years of world history. Now, Shabbos, what we say on Shabbos is it's Ma'ain Li'olam Haba. So the 7th millennium, the last 1,000 years are going to parallel Shabbos. Now this is going to be the age of global peace. This is going to be the age where death is eradicated. There's no more Yetzer Hara, there's no more death, there's no more illness. There's world peace. It's Mashiach, and after Hashem's done the Tchias HaMesim, then it brings the world to completion. But what Hashem's done that's so special is that Hashem has left room for us to help the world reach even the higher point. So what the higher point is, we see very early on in the creation, when Hashem's creating the land, what Hashem commanded the land to do is he wanted fruit trees, he wanted pre-8s that make pre. I mean, that he wanted, like, I forgot the exact lesson. He wanted fruit trees that make seeds of fruit trees, basically. But what he wanted is he wanted the tree, and every part of the tree would taste like the fruit. And then, not only that, so then we see that the earth, it's very strange, the earth's punished for this, but the earth didn't do exactly what Hashem commanded, and it was like a tree that produced fruit, but the whole tree, right, the whole tree didn't taste like the fruit. And then we see that there's a lot of trees that are what we call like an Eitz Sarak, a barren tree, and there's potential in the Teva, in nature, that we haven't even reached its culmination yet. And that there's trees that don't give fruit right now, that when the world's complete, when the Tikkun Ha'olam, is finally done, every tree will have fruit. It's amazing. Every tree will have fruit, and we'll get to taste fruit that we've never even tasted before. Like who wants to taste the fruit of a pine tree? That's got to taste pretty good, right? But right now it's a barren tree, like an elm tree, like all these trees that don't produce fruit right now. So there's all these fruits that we haven't even experienced yet. And then it says like there's a great ta'am, there's a taste when we have a Beis Hamikdash. And then even more miraculous than that, if we look in the Nevuah, of Yechezkel, I think it's around chapter 25, that there's this great natural spring underneath the Har HaBayis, underneath where the temple is going to be built. There's a natural spring, and there's a prophecy that this spring is going to come back up. And Hashem's going to split, the Har HaZeisim is going to split the Mount of Olives, and one of these streams is going to go and it's going to purify, it's going to go into the Jordan, it's going to go down to the Dead Sea, it's going to purify that again. That area is going to become very fertile and lush. And then it sounds like one of the streams is going to go towards the Mediterranean and maybe purify the waters there. I don't know if it means like the whole ocean or just the Mediterranean Sea, but it seems like they will become fresh water. And then if it's the whole ocean, I mean, if it's something as miraculous as that, then the whole world would just be filled with just pure, drinking water. And then if you can just think of how fertile and green and lush, the whole world could become, right? It's definitely, especially Eretz Yisrael, and so the world hasn't reached its potential. So why it was Tov Ma'od on the sixth day is that we people, that we can bring the world up to the higher level. And why we're learning the Torah, why we're doing the mitzvahs, why we're doing acts of kindness is to transform Olam Hazeh into Olam Haba, and then we can experience, right, the seventh day, which is what we're calling Olam Haba, these 1,000 years of peace. And if you want to think what's so crazy and scary is Amalek, right? The Nazis, Yamach Shema, what were they trying to do? They were trying to create their own 1,000-year Reich, right? Think about that. They wanted 1,000 years of Amalek to go against Olam Haba. How crazy and backwards is all of that? They got 12 years. They lasted 12 years and they were done. But this is the goal. This is the goal of all mankind, and this is all what we're being taught in Beis Reshis. There's two beginnings, the beginnings of two worlds. So just to go back, so that the potential of that first Shabbos. So how does Shabbos come into it? So Shabbos, right? The day of Shabbos is related to these 1,000 years of peace, like the Shabbat Shalom. So if Adam and Chava had never ate from the fruit of the tree of knowledge, like the Yetzer Hara would never come into people. And then it's amazing. Like Adam, I believe, would have become Mashiach, right? Chava would have become the queen, right? They would have brought, like we never would have left Gan Eden, and then Gan Eden would be elevated to its highest level, right?
6,000 years of peace. Where do you put that in 6,000 years?
Well, so that's what we call Olam Haba. So right now we're in the year 5785.
Right.
So starting the year 6,000 to the year 7,000 will be Olam Haba. Will be Olam Haba. It will be the earth will be transformed back into the Garden of Eden, and then all the potential in the world will reach its highest level. And we've been we're only been told about Yemotz Mashiach. We've only been taught about the days of Mashiach in the Nevuah. We've been giving no person has ever seen what life will really be like in Olam Haba. We get a taste of it every Shabbos. We get a little taste of like what it will be like every Shabbos. I think it's like 1/60th of Olam Haba. But no eye, only Hashem knows what Olam Haba will be.
Why not, if it's Olam Haba, why not 0 to infinity?
Because you want to hear a crazy?
Huh?
Are you ready for a crazy?
I'm just
you want
saying.
to hear a crazy? You want to hear a really crazy
on
idea?
6,000 year plus 1 to infinity.
So it could be this. It could be that there's either these 7,000 year or 10,000 year cycles of history, and then Hashem like blinks it all out and starts it again. So then that gets into the concept of then let's say these 7,000 year cycles are happening. 7,000 years of history are happening, and then it starts again. And then what that starts to build is, so we talked about a God day. right? 1,000 years. A God week is 7,000 years. So
Memphis talks about that?
it's in the Sifrei Kabbalah. So 7,000 years of history would be a God week. Then you would have 4 of those would make a God month. Then you would have a God year, right? Then you would have a God Shemitah cycle, and then you would have a God Yovel. So, and then if you start adding all those numbers up, you do get, I think, this 15 billion year number. That this could be happening again and again and again and
I
again.
had
and
lunch
again.
with Yogi Berra 3 weeks ago,
Yeah.
and he says the last for infinity. He says, after this life, he says life goes on for infinity.
So we could keep going.
Yeah.
But then what's very interesting is eventually, when it gets to the end of the God Yovel, then I think then it's infinite. Then it could be infinite. Then it just, I don't know. It's
fizzles. The whole
this
thing
is,
fizzles.
but this is. I don't want to get too much. That's so beyond. It's so beyond our, our understanding.
That was last Thursday, and I wasn't there.
We're not always supposed to think about these things because these things, it's almost too much beyond our what we can,
Well, Yogi Berra says
Working bread.
infinity is a long time.
Yeah. What was this one of his famous quotes? It ain't over till it's over. It's like. Alright, so let's take a look. Let's take a look here. Okay. So this is very powerful.
This is super stuff. Wow.
Okay, were
Amazing.
Israel to observe 2 Shabboses. 2
Oh, boy.
Shabboses properly. Right, so according to all the halakha, they would immediately do that right? Immediately be redeemed. And this we'll see later. This is on Shabbos 118b. All right, we're going to talk about the ramifications of this. All right, so with the Jewish people, if all the Jewish people would celebrate 2 Shabboses, we would immediately be redeemed. Okay, so
You could change those words as saying, the words can be changed around, when the moon bumps into the sun, the Jews could be immediately redeemed.
hopefully
That's
it won't-
about this as
hopefully-
equal. If
well,
the chances
Chas
of that
v'shalom.
happening
Okay,
is
Chas-
like the moon bumping into
so
the sun.
it seems miraculous, right? It seems miraculous. Okay, so let's talk about. We're going to talk about 3 special Shabboses. Okay, so what we're talking about now is the first Shabbos in Gan Eden. With just that one Shabbos, right? If they didn't eat from the tree of knowledge, we were saying like Adam would have become Mashiach, right? They would have built the base of Mikdash, and then every other child, then there would be no person in the world would ever have been born outside of Gan Eden. The whole world would be the Garden of Eden. It would be Olam Haba. It would just always be the age of peace. Like world history, the Torah would have been like this. The Torah would have been like, Hashem creates everything. He creates Adam and Chava. He tells them not to eat, from the tree. They don't do it. He becomes Mashiach. They build the base of Mikdash. The whole world is Yisrael. Everyone's part of Yisrael, and then we're all living happily ever after. And now, I don't know. We learn the Torah and we do the mitzvahs in Gan Eden, and everything's fantastic. Okay, so that would have been the history of the world. That one Shabbos, the first Shabbos, because it was that first Shabbos, it had the power to finish it, right? To bring the Gula, to have Hashem send Mashiach. Yeah.
Who's they?
Who's they? So Adam and Chava. I'm saying Adam.
No. Well, Israel to the 2 Shabbos.
Oh, the Jewish people.
Properly,
Yeah.
They.
Yeah, the Jewish people will be redeemed. Hashem will send Mashiach.
They, not the world. It's just the Jewish.
Well, I mean,
the Jewish people.
because as of right now, we're the only nation that's accepted the Torah. So that's what we talk about the Yom HaShishi, on the 6th day of Sivan at Mount Sinai. We're the only nation right now to accept the Torah. So look, the original plan is if Adam and Chava hadn't eaten from the tree, then everyone would have been born, everyone would have been Yisrael. Everyone would have been, there would be no 70 nations, there would be no divisions, there would be, it would have been, so that first Shabbos had that power. Okay. So then we talked about the Shabbos HaGadol. So that was one Shabbos, right? That was one Shabbos. And that, we said, had the power to break us free of Egypt. So Egypt is the Meitzar, the restraints. So that Shabbos, the great Shabbos, had the power to break us out, but we still needed the power of 2 Shabboses. Okay. So what was then going to be the next Shabbos? So then we're outside of Egypt. And now there's going to be a Shabbos where now we've learned the Halacha Shabbos, and we're going to celebrate the first Shabbos as a nation. And we talked about that. Connected to that is the man. One of the brachas that we learned about so far is the man, the manna. So if everyone had, celebrated that Shabbos perfectly, once again, Moshe would have become Mashiach. He would have led us into Eretz Yisrael. The Yetzer Hara would have been gone. World peace, everything's great, Olam Haba, or Yemos Mashiach starts and Moshe leads us into Olam Haba. But unfortunately we had some nudniks. I think it was, what were their names? Dasan and Aviram, and I think they were out there on Shabbos trying to gather them on. And because they were Machal Shabbos, because they profaned Shabbos, as we call it, desecrated Shabbos, that Shabbos didn't, it didn't immediately send Mashiach. We would have been instantly redeemed. We would have had, the full Geula Shlema. So that Shabbos had that power. Okay, so then what's interesting is, why do we need 2 Shabboses now?
Why not just one?
Right, so those special Shabboses, the very first Shabbos, and the first Shabbos as a nation. And those individual Shabboses were so powerful that either one of them, followed properly, would have brought it on. But now because we're not a reshis anymore, there's something special, it's something brand new. And if you do it right the first, that expression, if you do it right the first time. So those first 2 Shabboses, first Shabbos of mankind and the first Shabbos of the Jewish people as a nation, had the power. But now we kind of missed our chance, so now we need a second chance, right? So for the second chance, we now need 2. Right? We now need 2. And let's take a look a little more of why do we need 2 now, and how do we do this? As you said, it may be tricky. Okay. So this is the Mesod HaChamim. It's very interesting what he says. He says it's a midrash called the Mesod HaChamim. I think from the secrets of the wise men, from the secrets of the wise. So it says, in its simple sense, observing 2 Shabboses properly, according to the Halacha, means for Israel to attain the highest level of Shabbos observance for 2 consecutive weeks. So in a sense, it's like all 6 days preparing for that Shabbos, 1 week, and then the next week, all 6 days preparing. So now it's interesting. So for some reason now, we need to do a double. We had 6 days of creation in Shabbos, but for some reason now we had 2 times where we could have just done that 1 week perfectly. But now for some reason we need these 2 perfect weeks. Okay, so let's see why. So such an accomplishment would indicate the nation having freed itself of inner subjugation to the passions and the desires of the world. So it would prove that the whole nation was no longer listening to the Yetzer Hara. We'd be immune to all the temptations of the physical world, all the temptations of the other nations. So a natural result of such attainment would be the ultimate redemption, the ultimate geula. For a nation that has achieved total victory in life's greatest struggle, the conquering of one's Yetzer Hara, the conquering of the evil inclination, cannot remain subjugated to the laws and the whims of foreign nations. Very, very deep idea. So it's what it's saying is very, very deep idea. It's very incredible. It's like, and we see this all throughout Sefer Shoftim, the book of Judges, that if we're not following the Torah properly, Hashem then sends another nation in to like oppress us and kind of conquer us, and then we have to fight that off. But that is a sign that we're not following the Torah properly. This is a very deep idea. Like, so when Bilam and Balak, when they came to try to curse us and hurt us, they saw that we were upholding the Torah perfectly. They said, "Ma tovu okaleka Yaakov." Even Bilam was forced to say, like, how beautiful, how good are your tents? And Bilam had to say, like, there's no sorcery in the Jewish people. There's no kesem. There's no kishuv. It's it's a nation living perfectly together. And when they saw the power of a nation following the Torah, no other nation can hurt us. So we're only vulnerable to attack when we're losing our battle against the Yetzer Hara. And then we're losing a spiritual war, and then Hashem sends us a physical war. And we can see it, unfortunately, we can see it so clearly right now. Like, there was such horrible fighting in Israel before October the 7th. There was such horrible sinas chinam, and everyone was at each other's throats, right? I saw an article, so interesting. It was written by a secular man from Tel Aviv. And he said, now I know what it feels like to be a Haredi. It's like they had these like some Kiruv organization, I don't know which one, they had outside like a Rosh Hashanah service, and he said he wasn't religious, he works, but for whatever reason that year he wanted to try it. He wanted to pray for Rosh Hashanah. And then he said, like, these protesters were coming and they were screaming at him for praying on Rosh Hashanah. And he's talking to them. He's like, I've been with you at so many other protests, and you know who I am, and now you're yelling at me just because I want to pray on Rosh Hashanah. Like, he says, now I know what the Haredim feel like. It's like, why are you screaming just because I'm trying to pray, on Rosh Hashanah? But there was just such, just such hatred, cynicism, and then we saw just this horrible massacre, right? And still today, I think it's day, I don't even know, 270, I don't even know where we're at. Still 50 hostages in Gaza, right? And what it's saying, what the Mesod Chachamim are saying is, we get attacked physically when we're not winning the battle spiritually. When we're not winning the battle against the Yetzer Hara, we get attacked by an external enemy, and then we have to come together, right? And then when we get attacked, then we see we're all in it together, and we have to fight together, and we have to come back together and do teshuvah. Right? So then the Mesod Chachamim, it goes on, and it relates that Rebbe Yehuda, he said in the name of Rav, he said, had Israel kept the first Shabbos in the Midbar, the first Shabbos that we're talking about, the first Shabbos, the man fell, the very first Shabbos as a nation. It said no nation or sect would have dominion over it. So Rav cites the account of Amalek's attack against Israel, which occurred soon after the nation had reached such awesome heights at the Kriyas Yamsuf, at the splitting of the Red Sea. In Shmos 17:8, in the book of Exodus, right? So in Ron's opinion, Israel's vulnerability to physical attack was indicative of a spiritual weakness that came to light when some individuals contravened Hashem's will by searching for the manna on Shabbos. So had the entire nation kept the first Shabbos properly, this too would have indicated a total negation of inner earthliness, resulting in complete and ultimate redemption. I mean, just pretty incredible stuff.
What happened to that first Shabbos? What did we violate?
So I think we can look it up, but I think it was Dasan and Aviram, and they went to collect the man on Shabbos. And so because they desecrated the Shabbos, right, then we didn't keep the first Shabbos properly. Those guys were such ludniks. They're such troublemakers.
Rabble.
But we know it's so incredible. But they still had the emunah that they wanted to come out of Mitzrayim. I mean, there's other stories too. Like, such crazy, and they were causing so much like machlokas and strife, and they were involved in. I think they were finally killed in Korach's rebellion because they had this constant fight with Moshe. It was so crazy. But we have the power of that Shabbos, and I guess we're all held responsible, and it shows that we're all guarantees. We're the guarantors for each other. What's it, Ravi and Lo, like we're all guarantors for each other. Like I guess the problem was that other people should have tried to stop them, talk them out of it, or like do a little kiruv, invite them to a Shabbos meal. I don't know, try to makarva. I don't know, like try to reach out to them, see what's driving them so much to like want to do this. It's not easy. It's not easy.
Well,
It's
these
so.
two, they were troublemakers from the get-go, even in Israel.
Yeah, but yet again, what I think is incredible about them is, because I think what it says, like all the men that became like on the Sanhedrin, they did something really incredible when we were in Egypt. Why they got appointed to the Sanhedrin is because like they were kind of appointed by the Egyptians to like make the other Jews like do the work, to do the slavery. But if the Egyptians were going to punish, like if they were going to whip and punish the Jewish slaves, it was amazing. These men would take the punishment themselves.
Yeah, these two were,
And I think they were a part of that, maybe.
yeah, yes,
But it showed something incredible. I mean, it showed that what a real Jewish leader is, and it's scary. And maybe we haven't seen like someone this great, but someone we have the Gedolim. We have like we've seen really holy people like Rav Chaim Kanievsky and Rav Eliashiv, but it's like it's that quality. Like we talking about Rav Steinman. I looked at it again, amazing. Like it seemed like every Tisha B'Av, there was a picture of him even when he was 100 years old. He slept with something very hard, and I think a lot of his life he slept on the floor on Tisha B'Av. He wanted to feel the pain, and I heard there's been Gedolim in Israel. I heard that every day that there's been hostages in Gaza, they've slept in an uncomfortable way, and they made themselves try to experience what these people who are being tortured and abused, so they will feel. It said that about Moshe Rabbeinu. Like Moshe would go and try to relieve the burdens of the other Jews that were slaves. Like the real Jewish leader goes and tries to feel the pain with the Jewish people. Not someone just hidden away, in a castle, feasting. But these were real Jewish leaders. That they accepted the lashes instead of the slaves getting the lashes, because they were appointed over the slaves. They would take the lashes, and that's how they became the Sanhedrin. That's how they merited to become the first Sanhedrin. Just incredible stuff. But it shows us the power, right? The power of Shabbos. Right, so let me see. We got a little bit of time. Let's do the first. So we're gonna do the first bracha of Shabbos. So we're gonna see all these different brachas that Shabbos can provide. So we see the Tif Eres. Let's do the very first one, and then we'll go for the rest of them. So the Tif Eretz Sion. Right, he says this. He says, oh, I'm sorry. So he says this. So he says in the Midbar. And let me just read this right now. So he says, in the Midbar, in the wilderness, Bnei Israel received a double portion of man every Erev Shabbos, providing food for Shabbos. So it says there's a bracha, there's a blessing, the bracha of extra man is but one example of the divine guarantee that whatever a person spends in honor of the Shabbos is refunded to him by Hashem. So it's very fascinating what the Tiferet Sion is saying. So we see, it says in the Gemara that it says like on Rosh Hashanah, the parnasa, like how much money a person will make, is decided, and then it's sealed. And then it's sealed on Yom Kippur, right? So whatever a person's going to make the whole year is decided during Rosh Hashanah. But it says something really interesting. It says, but a person can spend a lot on Shabbos, and that becomes like a bonus. So whatever the salary was decreed for a person can actually really increase that amount tremendously by whatever they spend on Shabbos. It's a beautiful idea. So the Tiferet Sion, what they're doing is they're learning out that concept of where does the written Torah really teach us this concept. And what he's saying is he's seeing it that because we receive this double portion of man every Erev Shabbos, what he's doing is he's learning out from that the more a person spends on Shabbos, then they can actually get double of whatever salary, whatever parnasa they were supposed to earn the whole year, they can double it. And because Shabbos has this special bracha, that the more a person spends on Shabbos, that it'll come back double. So a person can actually increase their salary, increase how much a person can become, we'll see, very, very wealthy by the more they're investing in Shabbos. The more they're doing to honor Shabbos, the more they're making these elegant feasts on Shabbos, that a person can actually they can get more money than they were decreed to get. All right, so it says in Bereshis Rabbah, Bereshis Rabbah 11:3, it says not only is a person paid back for any financial loss he might incur for the sake of Shabbos. So anything that a person spends, for all the Shabbos food or for anything he needs for Shabbos, so that amount Hashem completely pays that back. But one who honors this day is rewarded with a good life and with wealth. So what's incredible is, so we're seeing that the double man is what the Tiferet Sion, what he's explaining from this Bereshis Rabbah, that we actually get back double. So whatever we spend, right, whatever we spend on Shabbos, we are paid back from Hashem that amount. All the expenses of Shabbos are paid back, and then all that amount that we spent on Shabbos, we get that as a bonus. Then we get the same amount again as a bonus. So a person, people that really, so it's interesting. So you see, you see these people, Baruch Hashem, who have these massive Shabbos tables. They're inviting all these guests. It's like, how do these people do it? It's like they do it because they're outlaying all this money on Shabbos, and Hashem's paying them back. And now, and the more they do it, the more they have the resources to keep having these luxurious Shabbos sudas, these great festive meals on Shabbos. And that's the first bracha of Shabbos. Okay. Any comments or good for today? Okay, so we'll end it there today.